This is Eric Riker. I'm John Kilpatrick. We're with Okolona Aikido in Louisville, Kentucky. And today we want to talk about pins that you see in Aikido. And this is not something that I feel like is practical. As a civilian, if somebody attacks me, what happens if I pin him down? I pin him down. If I let him go, from students of mine that have done this and let people go, they just attack them again. So then I feel bad for saying, well, don't hurt the guy, don't be so nice. I mean, don't be ugly, be as sweet as you can be. And then they have to fight a guy all over again and beat him all over again. And on the other hand, if you've got him pinned down and then you rip his shoulder out or break his arm or something so that he can't continue to attack you, you look like a brute to the bystanders, and my guess is that a jury is not going to understand the problem you're facing in dealing with this criminal. So those are not good options. But nevertheless, this is part of Aikido, and I guess if you're working with police or something, they have use for this. And so there are two different types of practice that we have with pinning that teach slightly different concepts. And I haven't shown this in any of the stuff we've been practicing so far because it just isn't what I was looking at. But the first one is with Kokyu-dosa. And so with Kokyu-dosa, normally, you come here, and then at this point we do a pin. And, you know, let's move this way. So then when we do this, normally we're just holding this hand down, and then this hand goes in this socket formed by his shoulder here. And the idea of this is, now you look at this and you say, this really looks hokey. It's an exercise. It's not, this isn't really supposed to be a pin, at least in my opinion. Now some people talk about people doing magic where they stand above you and have their hands 4 or 5 feet away and you can't get up. I don't know. But that's not what this is. And so if he just pushes against me and I try to hold him down, it's very easy for him to push my weight away. And I mean, I can push people away that weigh, I know I've tried it with people that weigh 150 pounds more than I weigh. I weigh about 130, and you know, I can push them away. So the trick to this is that I extend out along this arm and push him toward the wall. I don't push down on him. I spread him out. So as he tries to push up, I just spread out. And when I do that, it's extremely difficult for him to try to sit up. So the point of this is that when you're pinning people down, you spread them out. And we can do the same exercise by putting our hand here on his belly and pushing toward this hip. So I can push out, and he can still bridge some, but it gets really hard for him. Whereas if I try to push down on his belly and he bridges, it's extremely easy for him to toss me off. He's vastly more powerful. So we do the same thing here with Ikkyo. I want to go ahead and show how this is applied, and then we'll show the Ikkyo thing because we're already right here. And so if we were doing Kesugatami, say, now it's, if you're a BJJ guy or particular, I don't know much about BJJ, but I know I did judo, but that was 50 years ago. And so probably you'll look at me and say, well, you're doing everything wrong, and you're probably right, because I haven't practiced this in 50 years. But if you're supposed to have this leg up to the top, this leg back, and what I was always taught, will roll into his chest and put a lot of pressure on him so he can't breathe, and you'll wear him out. In judo, you have to hold the guy this way for 30 seconds to get the point. But oh, that's a lot of work. And what he wants to do to get some of the most common ways of getting out of this is for him to bridge me up and push my head down toward my foot, see? So he wants to get me up like this so he can go under my hip. Or there's another way to do it going over my head. Well, the easiest way to prevent that I know of is to do what we just did, where I pushed with my hand toward his hip. This time I push with this leg. So as he tries to bridge up, I just push back with this leg, and he can't, it's very hard to lift your hips. And you can't, there's no way to even come close to bridging me up. Now, I feel very uncomfortable being up here because he can catch my head and push it back. So he can catch my head and do that and hook it with his leg, and I'm in a lot of trouble. But when he does that, if I push with this back leg over his front shoulder and stretch him out, it becomes extremely difficult for him to push me back. And you can try this with different pins. And if you're a judo guy, I was talking about if you're a judo guy, try this with different pins and see how it works for you. But the idea is to spread your guy out. Don't try to hold him down. Now, your typical, let's just go to this Kodagai Ishi position. So if I have, and let's turn this way some more. So, and let's come back here. Okay, so typical Aikido pins look like this, where we've thrown the guy, and there's several variations on this, but they all follow this pattern. I've thrown the guy, I've got his shoulder, his arm up here. Now, usually when people are pinning me with these things, they want to inflict pain. So so you do it till the guy starts padding out of pain. But there's a principle to this that is very important. Now, just like when I was doing the technique before, I'm sitting at this shoulder, and so I hold this shoulder down. I can do that. And then I want to spread him out along this shoulder and along his hips, just like we did when we were doing it on his back. And from this position, the way I do this is I take this elbow and I'm rotating it toward his hips. And that flattens out his hips. And I take this hand and move it toward this shoulder. So I'm like this, and I'm just stretching him. And that flattens out his hips, and this flattens out his shoulder. So as I'm doing this, if he tries to lift his hips, he finds that very difficult. If he tries to lift his shoulder, he finds it very difficult. And this is really all there is to these pins, but this is really important. And I've tried this with a lot of different kinds of pins and that aren't Aikido pins, other kinds of pins, and it seems to me to work very well. Now, you can do this standing. So if I had done Kodagai Ishi, I would be in a position like this. It's the same kind of thing. I can push this arm toward that shoulder to stretch it out, and I rotate his fingers out away from him to stretch his hips out. So those are the principles as I understand them. This is my understanding. People just show you the exercises. Nobody's explained any of this to me. But these are the principles of pinning somebody that are taught in Aikido.